Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you for joining me for this week's edition of the SMIE Consulting Midweek Roundup. We're live from Belgrade, Serbia, attending the Education USA Europe Eurasia Regional Forum. We're having the last day of the forum today, some amazing sessions over the last 3 days that have really helped open my eyes to some new possibilities for universities to connect with Education USA as part of their overall international recruitment trends. We're going to talk about basically Education USA today. And for those who know me well, this is one of my favorite topics. Education USA has been in my blood internationally and professionally since I started in the profession in 1993. My first international ed boss told me shortly after I was hired that when you are recruiting international students around the world, developing plans for how to recruit in particular countries, these Education USA advisors are going to become your best friends. And they, at the time, they were called OC's advisors, this is back in the 90s. So Education USA as an entity didn't start until, with a name, didn't start until 99 when the State Department had formally developed a logo and a name for the network, but they had educational advisors had existed before the name came into effect. And at that point, my first Education USA regional event was here in Europe at a conference in Budapest in the summer of 1998. First one of these regional forums that I got to attend 24 years ago last month. So for me, Education USA has always been a part of my professional career in terms of whether I was working for Education USA for 6 years in Washington, D.C. as the marketing coordinator and outreach coordinator based at IIE for the network, to my first international assignment at Marquette, to my current work in my consulting work, but also with my role at UNLV as Director of Global Recruitment and Partnerships. And that's why I'm here. I'm representing UNLV. And in that respect, from the beginning to the current time in my career, Education USA has always been at the heart of what I seek to engage in and spend my professional capital on as much as I can to the relationships that I've been able to develop going back to the 90s are still thriving today. Some have retired, some have moved on, but they are some of the most hardworking people in the industry and some of the, unfortunately, poorest paid educational officials, advisors around as well. So, but I talk from a position of history working with the network, but also from a position of just a great love for the people that are here. The regional coordinators, the advisors on the ground that do the hard work are really the heartbeat of the network of over 430 advising centers in 175 countries. They make the network what it is. The regional coordinators, there's actually 3 of them here. We've got Gordana Merkic from that's based in this part of the world in East. She's the sole European REAC that is currently employed. There's 2 openings recently. One from based in Ukraine. Katya Skodova recently left her position there, obviously with what's going on there. But also we lost another REAC for Western Europe at the beginning of the summer. So 2 other REACs stepped in, and Karen Bauer and Melissa Deschamps from the MENA region have stepped up and have helped Gordana and her team here. I want to give a special shout out to Elizabeth Chung and her team at the International Academic Center here in Belgrade. Elizabeth's one of the longest serving advisors. I think she mentioned she's been in her position for 25 years. Since 97. So she and Dragan is just a real hero of mine. He was doing tech back and started thinking social long before most advising centers were. So they've been in charge of this putting on the local arrangements, folks, obviously being based here in Belgrade. So special shout out to them. They're just amazing people and really salt of the earth and incredibly knowledgeable in their field. Now, I'm going to spend some time in terms of talking about Education USA and the services that they provide, and particularly these conferences that they host. Typically, pre-COVID, they were doing 2 of these every year. And in fact, this conference was supposed to be in 2020 and had to be delayed. There's also the WHA for Western Hemisphere Advising Centers that's taking place in November in Costa Rica. I'll be dropping the links to these into the chats on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and LinkedIn later today. But in terms of what you need to know, these regional forums really give you a chance, if you're targeting particular world regions for increasing your brand exposure for your institution in a particular region, if you're looking for partnerships, if you already have significant traffic from certain countries within a region, these regional forums give you a chance to connect with those advisors on the ground, help connect them with maybe some of your current students to help the advisors do their job better in terms of providing that all-important current student perspective on life in the U.S. You get a chance to reconnect with alumni who might be back in country that your advisors, Education USA advisors might need to know. Connect them with them to potentially serve as panelists. So there's some great information sharing and learning going on at these regional forums. So absolutely a priority if you're going to be traveling at all internationally. For me at UNLV, these are the priority events for me. These regional forums here for Europe, Eurasia, for Western Hemisphere. We're going to be doing quite a bit in Latin America in the coming years because of our location in the southwest of the United States and some natural affinities there as an HSI as well. Now we're in the first week of Hispanic Heritage Month, and obviously there's some real relevance for our institution. So that WHA conference in November will be very important. There will be one in Africa. The word on the street is it might be at the end of April, beginning of May, in hopefully South Africa, maybe Cape Town. The last time it was there, 12 years ago. I had the pleasure of being in Johannesburg for that event right after the World Cup. So looking forward to getting back to South Africa potentially. That's just word on the street, nothing official yet. But that's the next regional forum, and then maybe one again in the fall. We're not sure. Probably only one, because these are expensive things to put on. So budgets are just getting back up to where they need to be, hopefully in the next few months. But in terms of resources, let's start. Well, I've told you some of the real meaty stuff with the travel that you can do to recruit students. Get to know regions, get to know education systems, get to know what works in particular countries. All of that's particularly relevant. But what resources I want to share with you today, for those that are not already connected with EdUSA, I'm dropping the link to the Education USA section of their site for U.S. higher education professionals. There is a login that you can request that gives you access to some back-end stuff that is particularly helpful, particular REACT contact details, all these other things and advisor emails are all behind that login. So definitely recommend getting that. Once you do that, you can also register for the HEI e-newsletter or HEI newsletter that comes out monthly. That is something we started when I was working at Education USA back in the day as a way for the EdUSA community to update higher ed community in the U.S. on upcoming fairs, any forums, any new scholarship programs that we're developing in the region, those kind of opportunities. So that's a great resource. So the link to the higher ed section of the EdUSA site, and you request the login from there. Also, in addition to the Education USA forums and the monthly higher education monthly updates, that's what the HEI, that's what we used to call the HEI e-news. It's called a US Higher Ed Monthly Update now. I'll be dropping a link to the most recent edition there. There's also, for those of you who are traveling and are either hitting the road or still committed to doing some virtual fairs, Education USA now has a consolidated site where all of this information is, and that's a godsend. Because it used to be, well, if you don't get the HEI newsletter, then you won't get the links, or you had to be on check out their Facebook pages. But now there's just one location where you can go to get all the available fairs to register for. You can search by location, by region, by city, that type of thing. And so it lists all the upcoming ones, lists both virtual and in-person fairs. So that's, I think, that's a very useful thing to know. And one in particular that I'll highlight, because we're obviously talking about EUR, is in I think it is in October or November. It might be November. There is the Eurasia, Eastern Europe and Central Asia regional virtual fair that'll be happening. It's only $500 to register. Some of these EdUSA virtual fairs are free. Some there's fairly low cost. Some are where there's big volume coming, like the India fairs they had earlier in September had, I think, a $1,500 fee, but there was like 10,000 students that came to that event. So so check out the fair page, educationusafairs.org, and the link will be dropped into the chats. So some great resources there. If you're looking for something just to give more background on kind of top, larger, bigger picture issues, they have also their own podcast. And as you know, those who follow the Midweek Roundup, you know we have an audio-only podcast version of what we do here on Wednesdays available that you can get on our website at smieconsulting.org/subscribe. You can find the links to the Apple podcast, to the or Apple version, the Spotify, these and a couple other ways you can wherever you get your podcasts, you'll be able to find that. So, but EdUSA has their own now. It's called The Edge. And that is particularly useful, I think. I've gotten a lot out of that. There are a couple of advising centers also that have recently, I'm just finding this out now as I'm looking at the page on the site, but Education USA Mongolia, Cabo Verde in Africa, and Education USA Australia also have their own podcasts. So glad that those are being profiled as well. So there's some choices there for some extra listening habits. If you need an extra podcast related to work, then in addition to the Midweek Roundup, I humbly recommend you check out those EdUSA versions of their content. I will also be sharing opportunity, a presentation I was part of today or yesterday called Going Beyond Webinars, Advanced Strategies for Collaboration Between Europe, EUR advisors and U.S. higher education institutions. I had a chance to present with some amazing young ladies who have been in the field for between 7 and 12 years as Education USA advisors, and my goodness, they are so advanced. When I think about some of the advisors that in terms of their knowledge of not only advising, virtual advising, so using social media to recruit, to connect with students, all of this, they just have some great experience now, and we're part of the panel I had the pleasure of presenting with. Leila Hamnadova from Azerbaijan, Natalia Kozlowska from Education USA Poland, and Tatya Rytlatsa. And I made that's her name I have the most trouble with, but she was very kind and about my poor pronunciation, so I appreciate her and all of these rising stars and actually established stars now in Europe in the EdUSA network. So it was an interesting presentation. We went through kind of two main areas, an overview of the virtual outreach tools that are being used in EUR. They did a survey out to the advisors to see what's working. Then they had some case studies from their own campuses of what they've done. I had the opportunity to share from the university side for that what some of the more important principles that are kind of have stood the test of time, really, in terms of social media marketing and about living where your audiences live. And that's kind of a number one rule should be for anytime you're going out on social and trying to connect with students, is if you don't have a presence where your intended audiences are spending their time, then you're missing that boat. So live where your audience lives, listen as just a way to approach using social media effectively. Then we talked about, I talked about some of the resources that could help U.S. higher ed folks figure out which tools are being used. I referenced the Global Guide. For those who aren't aware of the Global Guide, this is something that Education USA, we started this actually when I was there back in 2010, right about the same time we started the EdUSA forum in DC. It was at that point, it was a compilation of just regional profiles from what was going on in the network, from the REACs would put together for the 6 different world regions. And then kind of global statistics on web usage, or web visitors, social media sites, all the presence of the network in those respective areas. So that, for my money, I always saw Open Doors as that's almost the Bible for international recruiters when they're figuring out where the top markets are, where they need to be recruiting, spending their time. And then we developed the Global Guide as sort of a compilation, kind of not a compilation, but if Open Doors is 1A, the first thing you look to, the Global Guide should be the second thing, or 1A on that list. And certainly over the years, it's grown incredibly as a resource. The REACs put a ton of time in putting that content together every year, as well as the DC IIE team that puts all the rest of the pieces together. So definitely, if you're trying to find out and break into a new area or find out what the current strategies are being used, so I referenced that in the presentation, and the Global Guide is for 2022 is available as well. If you've got your login to the Education USA site, you'll get that as well. But the Global Guide, in addition to that, we talk about resources and best practices from the advisor side, as in terms of and giving some more case studies of what worked successfully, what they really saw as values. From my perspective, from the university side, the best practices on student engagement online is really keeping them coming back for more, and part of that means having opportunities for them to engage with you at all points in the admissions cycle, not just by email, because and we all know the challenges that email presents when communicating with prospective students. But really, these are some of the, whether it's student ambassador programs, virtual open houses, current student social media content that can be repurposed, not just on social, but in videos embedded in email content, in overall messaging on your website. All of that needs to be ever present. Developing international alumni testimonials that can show value, the real return on investment that is so important now for prospective students as they're making their choices on where to go. International admitted student events, live AMA chats, pre-departure orientations, content for parents, virtual content for parents. Having those having the opportunities, and as you plan recruitment strategies and plan what you do during the prospect to applicant stage, what you're doing to convert those applicants to completed, and then admitted students, and what you're doing to get admitted students to commit and hopefully enroll. What do you do at each of those different stages virtually to engage with your prospective audiences, and how do you keep it fresh? How do you target students where they are? Particularly at the recruitment stage, that can be a little bit more diffuse, where you're trying different things in different countries. But obviously, when you get down to the admitted stage, and you pick a platform that you can either simulcast to, like for those who aren't familiar, we do live stream this out through a service called Restream, and this goes to our Facebook page for SMIE Consulting, our YouTube channel, our Twitter feed, and my LinkedIn profile, live streamed on those platforms concurrently. The advisors each mentioned live streaming events that they do, that they simulcast, that they are recording in Zoom, but they also are posting it to their Facebook pages or their Facebook groups. So I think there's a lot of intentionality that needs to go into this. It can't be haphazard. It's like, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to try this, try that. Have some rationale behind why you do what you do. And these kind of presentations that you'll get the link to will be a really important step in that direction to help develop that. The final resource I'll share is a second session I was a part of that I've been preaching about for years, in terms of those that know our 6 Ps of strategic international enrollment management. We call those our 6 Ps. Those are our principles, our 6 principles that form our philosophy at SMIE Consulting on international enrollment management. That one of those P's is personalization, and you do that. One of the ways you can do that is by having developed personas. And so there's a session on personas, know your audience, and have develop personas of the kinds of students you have on campus, are the kind of students you want to recruit to your campus, and use that and use some of the potential responses that they might have to your content to drive kind of some of your messaging. So it's a great tool, great session, and some wonderful resources that they've had. I'll be dropping a link to that document as well. So all in all, I have to say it's always a pleasure being a part of these EdUSA regional forums, not only for the relationships that you develop, and when it comes right down to it, isn't that what we do in international ed? It's about those relationships. It's about the people we've met over the years. It's about all the kinds of opportunities we've had to be a part of conversations, whether it be virtually with students all around the world, or it's with people that you're meeting when you've traveled to conferences like this, to recruitment fairs overseas. So there's all sorts of opportunities that these kinds of events present. And I really encourage you, if you have the opportunity, attend these regional forums. If you do no other recruitment travel, do these, because these are the influencers that can impact students that might be looking at institutions like yours, and you can provide them the content and the information they need to make informed decisions about what's right for them. So that's all we have for you today. I wanted to take this time to say thank you again to the wonderful hosts with Education USA here in Serbia, Elizabeth and Dragan, and really all the Education USA advisors who have traveled from near and far. We've had advisors from Ukraine able to come be a part of the conference, and advisors from Russia as well that have traveled long distances and very circuitous distances to get here for the event. So it's a wonderful occasion when these events happen. There's also about 55 to 60 university representatives here. We had a nice college fair last night with over 350 Serbian students, both at the undergraduate and graduate level. A number that were athletes that were looking for information about opportunities in the United States. So really, altogether, an incredible opportunity to renew relationships, develop new ones, get new resources and ideas that you can implement into your recruitment strategies. And these are the kinds of things that you need as international admissions professionals. You need these kind of resources in country that you can refer to, but also that can become friends, lifelong friends that you'll meet at conferences and maybe host on your campus one day. If they're in the U.S. for training or attending a conference, you can be a part of their professional development and helping them really get to know your institution better, but also providing some content that will be useful for them to take home. So that's all we have for you today. Well, thanks again for being a part of our SMIE Consulting Midweek Roundup. I look forward to seeing you again in the weeks to come. Cheers.